What is going on, YouTube? It is your boy MrBaboon. We are back with another reaction video. This time we have the man who's 5'2", tactical and nukes. Just let that sink in for a second. Let that sink in. Good. So while that's still sinking in, make sure you guys like the video, subscribe if you guys are new, turn on post notifications so you guys never miss a video. So we're gonna react to this. I don't know anything about this, so let's go ahead and get to it. I will have the link for the video down below in the description if you guys want to check it out.
Yamaguchi, the man who survived 2 atomic bombs.
Damn.
No one encapsulates the idea of being in the wrong place at the wrong time more than Japanese engineer Tsutomu Yamaguchi, the first officially recognized survivor of 2 atomic bombs. It was the morning of August 6th, 1945,
Damn.
and just 1 month away from the end of the Second World War. Yamaguchi had just finished a 3-month assignment in Hiroshima, where he worked designing oil tankers for Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. He was about to start the long train journey home to Nagasaki to see his wife and newborn son, when the 29-year-old realized he had forgotten his hanko, an identification stamp common in Japan at the time. Once received and heading back home, he heard a rumbling in the air. Looking up, he saw an American B-29 bomber fly overhead, which, as Yamaguchi watched, deployed a small object that floated down to the city below, attached to 2 parachutes. The next thing he knew, the world exploded around him in a blinding magnesium-esque white light, and he had just enough time to dive into a nearby ditch before a sonic boom filled the atmosphere and everything turned black. When Yamaguchi awoke, the morning was still blanketed in darkness. Soot and debris from the explosion had almost eclipsed the morning sun. His eardrums had burst, and his face and arms were burning. He was less than 2 miles from ground zero, and yet, somehow, miraculously, alive.
Damn.
Others weren't so lucky. Approximately 30% of the city died in the blast, and tens of thousands more followed in the ensuing months. Years later, he described his thoughts following the bombings in a British interview. I saw a huge mushroom-shaped pillar of fire rising high into the sky.
Damn.
It was like a tornado, but it didn't move. But it rose and spread out horizontally at the top. There was prismatic light, which was changing in a complicated rhythm, like the patterns of a kaleidoscope. The first thing I did was to check to see I still had my legs and whether I could move them. I thought, if I stay here, I'll die. And so, 2 hours later, a dazed Yamaguchi resumed his trek to what remained of the shipyard he worked in. There, he found that 2 of his colleagues, Akira Iwanaga and Kuniyoshi Sato, had survived. Unable to do much else, the 3 spent the rest of the day and the next night in an air raid shelter, before heading to a nearby railway station that was somehow still running. What they saw on their way was nothing short of nightmarish. Bodies littered the streets, and at one point the 3 men were forced to wade through a river of corpses where a bridge had collapsed. Finally, they reached a train full of equally as burnt and shell-shocked people heading for home or refuge in Nagasaki. Meanwhile, in America, President Truman had made a statement taking credit for the atomic bomb and warning the people of Japan of the US's plans if they did not surrender. If they do not accept our terms, they may expect a rain of ruin from the air, the likes of which has never been seen on this earth. Behind this air attack will follow sea and land forces in such numbers and power as they have not yet seen, and with the fighting skill of which they are already well aware. With those unsettling words ringing in his ears, Yamaguchi thought that the chances of a bomb dropping on Nagasaki were high. But despite all this, and everything else he had dealt with in the past 48 hours, not to mention the fact that he was seriously injured, Yamaguchi still actually went into work the next day, on August 9th. Incredible.
Bro, what? That is crazy. He went into work the next day.
Incredibly, the director of his branch was mad at the bandaged, injured, and yet somehow still at work Yamaguchi. He yelled at him for losing his colleagues and told him he must have imagined that a single bomb destroyed Hiroshima and that he had gone a little mad. Imagine being caught up in a bomb, only to be yelled at by your boss a day later. A few moments later, a familiar, blinding white flash of light filled the office the two men stood arguing in. And for the second time in 3 days, the world exploded around Tsutomu Yamaguchi. It was 11:02 a.m. on the 9th of August, and the second atomic bomb had just been dropped on Nagasaki. 70,000 more Japanese citizens died. Later, Yamaguchi confessed that for a second, he thought that the mushroom cloud had followed him all the way from Hiroshima. Still badly injured and angry at the director, he ignored his cries for help, climbing out of the shattered window and running home to his wife and baby, who luckily were unharmed, except for a few cuts and bruises.
They're still okay, bro. I mean, like, RIP to everyone who's lost their life in that. You know what I mean? Like,
this is AG1. This is daily nutrients plus gut health support, powering your...
There, Yamaguchi collapsed, spending the next week hovering between life and death as his fever spiked and his now exposed wounds burned. The hospital had been destroyed, and there was no one to treat him in the midst of the chaos. When he finally came around, it was a week later, and there were cries and cheers in the air. Japan had just announced its surrender on the 15th of August, 1945. To this day, the morality and necessity of dropping atomic bombs on innocent civilians has been questioned and examined and re-examined. Did the earlier surrender by Japan justify the loss of life in the bombs? Or were they unnecessary evils that should be treated as war crimes? A little-known fact is that America had several more atomic bombs ready to go and were awaiting Truman's confirmation to continue the onslaught just 2 days before Japan surrendered. If this really had occurred, it would be difficult for anyone to see the U.S.'s argument that mass civilian casualties were a necessary part of the war, and today's view on America's involvement might be very different. The far-reaching effects of the bombs and subsequent radiation still play a part in the health of the children and grandchildren of survivors today. Yamaguchi's own son sadly died of cancer at age 59 as a result of the exposure as a baby, and many more suffered similarly. Yamaguchi himself outlived his son and most other Hiroshima and Nagasaki survivors, but was rendered deaf in his left ear and wrapped in bandages for the years that followed. His wife sadly died from kidney and liver failure as a result of radiation poisoning at age 88. And as he got older, Yamaguchi experienced cataracts and acute leukemia. Despite this, Yamaguchi incredibly lived to 93 before succumbing to stomach cancer in 2010. Survivors of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs were called hibakusha by the Japanese government and were entitled to government support, allowances, and free medical care. Initially, Yamaguchi was only recognized as a survivor of the Nagasaki bombing, which he was fine with. But later in life, he decided it was important for his status to be officially recognized so that it can tell the younger generation the horrifying history of the atomic bombings. Although a 2016 documentary found 165 people who lived through both bombings, Tsutomu Yamaguchi is the person formally recognized by the Japanese government after applying for double recognition in January 2009 and being granted official dual survivor status 2 months later in March. In later years, when asked his opinion of the bombings, he would say, "They could have made their point by dropping one bomb. I think they were in a hurry to show their superiority. It would have been one thing if they had used it on a battlefield, but they knew that it would kill women, children, babies. How could they do that?" Although today we call Tsutomu Yamaguchi the luckiest man in history, it would perhaps be better for him to be known as the unluckiest lucky man, for he saw horrors many of us could not ever imagine facing.
He did. Damn, bro. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it for the video. If you guys did like the video, make sure you guys do like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think about it. It was something. It's just... And this was uploaded 7 days ago too. And I'm gonna put the link for the video we watched today, and I'm gonna put his channel down below in the link as well. So make sure you guys go check the video out and go check his channel out, all that good stuff. So I will see you guys in the next one. Positivity is key, motivation is key, happiness is key. You guys watch out for one another. I will see you guys in the next one. You guys stay safe.